Hello there, my name's Adi and I am your host for today at Pear News. Here we're presenting Pear News' predictions for the world from May 2024 to May 2025. Let's begin. First up, we are looking at the Indian elections, the 18th Lok Sabha. We expect to see a huge advance by the NDA as they smash their electoral goal of more than 400 in the Lok Sabha, or the lower house of parliament. We also expect to see the Indi alliance, led by the Congress party, with sluggish losses in the Lok Sabha as the BJP and NDA secure a hat-trick third term in power. And if you've at the time of this recording, there's also messages coming out. The Congress party saying that it has won, claiming it has 273 seats in the Lok Sabha, and that it is won. This may not be true, but either way, the time of recording, today is the 31st. Tomorrow is the 1st of June, and at 6:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time, results of the Indian elections will be coming through, as in the exit polls, and those will be a rough guide to the actual results, which will be coming on the 4th of June. For British viewers, that is around 11 p.m. UTC plus 0 or GMT plus 0. And yeah, this video is also available in Telugu. So my predictions for the Andhra state, for my Andhrites or Andhra, I predict a almost clean sweep across the board for many districts for the TDP. The YSRCP still holding a few seats here and there. In the Legislative Assembly, we're looking around 130 to 140 seats for the TDP, 20 odd seats for the JSP or the Janasena Party, or BJP winning 2 or 3 seats, and the YSRCP taking like less than 10 seats in the Legislative Assembly. It doesn't look good for them. So it looks like the Bajapa will take 2 or 3 seats. The TDP looking around 130 to 140 seats, and the Congress party 1, and the Vaikapa not looking good for them. Janasena will also do well. NDA, so that's the Bajapa, TDP, and the Janasena. Our second prediction: tensions between Egypt and Israel. As the Rafah offensive continues, and as more and more Israeli troops are sent into the region, chances of accidental and unintentional strikes or incursions into Egypt across the border will increase. The extent we will see is a major mobilization of Egyptian forces to in and around the Sinai Peninsula and the southern Levant region as a whole. And from the Israeli side, mobilization of Israeli reservists, stationing of them near and in strategic locations near the Judah-Egyptian border. Number 3, more countries recognizing the Palestinian Authority. As of now, Ireland, Norway, and Spain have recognized the Palestinian Authority, or the PA, as protest against Israel, and as the Republican Party in the United States of America protests against the Biden administration to stop sending weapons and ammunition to Israel's war machine, we will see many more countries recognizing the Persian Authority as rebuke for the Rafah offensive. This will either force the Israeli leadership to recognize and cooperate with the PA to take down Hamas with the support of the Middle East as a whole, including Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the Gulf, as in the Kingdom of Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, and Oman and Yemen. Yemen being a different case as it's split between the Houthis and the government, so it's not looking good. But that's a separate issue. So yeah, also doubled down its efforts in Rafah and mature its war into a long-term footing, as in troops start digging in at Rafah and more permanent infrastructure like checkpoints are made across the occupied lands of Gaza. Um, so to make sure Hamas doesn't come back. It looks like Hamas is making its final stand, and depending on the war, it could go both ways. That Israel loses this final battle against Hamas, or Hamas loses horribly to Israel's defenses and Gaza completely collapses. Both are bad options, and I'll continue in one of the later predictions on why. Number 4, the American elections. The country is more divided than ever, and as both parties, as in the Republican Party and the Democrat Party, try to unite their ideologies, as in left-right radicals, and market themselves to their voters, the political landscape will heat up even more. We are looking at a Trump versus Biden rematch, with Biden bringing on the idea of I've beaten him once, I'm going to beat him twice, while Trump taking on the more mature foreign policy concept about ending world conflicts and putting America first. As you've seen, he has spoken about NATO a lot during his campaign, talking about how he will change the dynamics of NATO and how he threatened that and make sure Russia does whatever you want to do if you don't pay for the threshold of defense, as in GDP. So, government spending. So, as I believe it's 3%. So, as it goes on, it may look kind of childish, but there's a good reason. Um, as in Trump and Putin were good friends when Trump was in the Oval Office, and either way, if NATO wants to win a war against Russia, whose troops are getting practice training experience from the battlefield in Ukraine, um, NATO has to step up its spending, has to make sure they're serious and make sure they have enough arms to defend themselves and actually attack Russia if the need arises. Because most of these countries, especially smaller ones who are more at risk, like Slovakia and countries more eastern, like Austria and such, are either giving all their arms to Ukraine, and Ukraine is being incompetent, as in the Ukrainian military is being incompetent, and it's not using them to the best for their abilities. Also, the fact that Western countries have, until today, limited their use to inside of Ukraine, not to attack inside of Russian territory, when a war with Russia is on the table as a possibility, could have been used better by NATO generals and from actual NATO countries, and that back and forth, as in, because now if you give all your fighter jets, if the war with Russia comes and Ukraine has lost your fighter jets, you can't fight. You're out of the war. You've lost. And some of the countries like Turkey, who are close to Russia, in a strategic location nestled between the Mediterranean, uh, just before the Gulf, and nestled also underneath the Black Sea, with a huge standing army of 400,000 troops who are playing a double game with Russia and America, NATO, and it's getting worse as, for example, under the Biden administration, this unmatured foreign policy that's played out over this 4 year term, we've alienated these Asia Pacific allies who would have actually helped us in the long term, like Saudi Arabia and Turkey. Because Turkey, 430,000 troops, one of the strongest militaries in the region, can make its own weapons, buys lots of weapons from Russia, and in a geopolitical, as in geostrategic location, um, very useful ally. Stable, kind of sometimes they're under a dictatorship, but either way, the Biden administration have alienated them for the Kurds, which have a group for no use for geopolitical reasons for America. So you didn't mess up there. And Turkey and Russia are getting closer and closer, as to the point where Turkey has already bought Russian weapons. They're going to get closer and closer, and to the point where they're not even following by the sanctions the European Union and NATO have gone under. Um, so Russia and Turkey will become closer trading allies. Same with Saudi Arabia and Russia. As Joe Biden, if I can get up any article or video, Joe Biden saying that he will turn Saudi Arabia or make Saudi Arabia look like the pariah they are, alienating our Saudi partners and just making unmature foreign policy decisions on a whim and then having to go back on them a few weeks later. So, for when Joe Biden visited Saudi Arabia, he made a fist bump with MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, and and then sold him weapons that he said he wouldn't. While under Trump, the alliance with the Saudis has, well, stable, been mature, and stuck. Has been a major ally. Like as also foreign policy with Qatar. The huge evacuation that took in Afghanistan during a few years ago when Taliban took over Kabul, that happened because there was a US presence in Qatar and they had Al Udeid Air Base. If Biden has a second term, that's 8 years total, he will alienate further partners, risking relationships with countries like India, Vietnam, Korea, maybe even Japan. That will turn these things worse. And imagine in the future where would you rather have a president who has started no wars in the time he's been president or has failed diplomatically? I have no say in US politics, I have no skin in the game because I am not an American voter, neither will I be voting for the presidential elections. But from a geopolitical like viewer, as someone who's been looking through geopolitics, someone who's been understanding strategy, looking at this, looking at that, what if that happened, what if this happened, what did he do, what did this, looking at the intention, it looks very clear to me that Joe Biden cannot stick a foreign policy together, and because of this, it has cost the American military, American diplomats, and American gender and almost global security as a whole. And he's let American servicemen die. So, as such time where the Gaza war only started, like last year or so, and at a time where the Middle East is under very, very stark. At a time the entire world is unstable, you need a stable leader, and we at APS think that stable leader in the American eye is Donald Trump. And when Europe's in trouble, Middle East in trouble, and East Asia in trouble, the Americans will look for a stable leader. Number 5. The Kush drug epidemic gets worse. On the 5th of April 2024, Sierra Leone's president declared a state of emergency in the small nation of 8 million, stating the zombie drug Kush was an existential crisis for the nation. Kush is an addictive drug made from bones and other ingredients and is common in the country. It was found that 63% of the National Psychiatric Hospital admissions were due to Kush-related mental problems. We expect this epidemic, quote unquote, to get worse as the year goes on, as government agencies and police take time to find and shut the huge drug supply chain. And it's very probable that these drug supply chains will spread to other countries to escape the prosecution and crackdowns happening by the government and police. Number 6, sluggish growth for the Chinese economy. This was a prediction from last year that showed to be true. The Chinese economy will continue to have sluggish growth as less and less Chinese people remain able to spend, as in they are comfortable with spending money, because that's what keeps the economy going, like people buying houses, people buying phones, cars, yada yada yada. Talks of a huge stimulus package from Beijing have been going around, but that's been going around for years, and I think it's very unlikely, and even if it does go through, we think it's way too less, way too late. We also see major investors, companies who invest in China, like Foxconn, the company that produces the iPhone, which is a Taiwanese company, pulling out and moving to other countries, either fully or partially, and investing in other emerging economies in Africa, India, or Southeast Asia. Number 7. Singapore's new Prime Minister, Lawrence Wong, forced to take a side. Singapore's new Prime Minister, Lawrence Wong, who is also working as Financial Executive or Financial Minister and the Chairman of the People's Action Party, or PAP or PAP, will face in external trials and tribulations, and will be forced to take a side. As tensions increase between the United States and her allies, and China, Singapore, a nation on the fence diplomatically, as in a country who held talks between North Korea and America, because East, as in North Korea and China, see Singapore as a favorite country, so does the US. And little tit for tit happened there, as in Chinese ships going to Singapore when there was naval military exercises between the US and Singapore, and little things. So in this year, we predict that this small nation will have to silently pick a side, and we expect them to take the US side, the Democratic Alliance, and the US will double down its presence at Changi Naval Base. Prediction number 8. Turbulent times for aircraft. No pun intended. Maybe. Now, 2 planes have suffered sudden and extreme turbulence, affecting 32 people with extreme injuries and 1 death. This will continue to get worse and worse as the FAA investigates what's going on. We believe it's to do with clear air turbulence, or CAT. that is being exacerbated by climate change. In other news, more and more pressure will be on the FAA to investigate Boeing and its corrupt and malpractice, as more and more airlines buy from the superior and safer Airbus. 9. Tensions between India and China peak this year. Tensions between India and China have been on a steady rise. In the coming year, they will hit their peak. We're predicting another round of clashes, very similar to the Galwan clashes of 2020, which led to an Indian victory. But this time, they will be happening in strategic locations more eastern. Both sides will station and deploy major assets nearby, including aircraft, uh, more troops like huge mobilizations. For example, the Indian Northern Command will deploy somewhere around 20 to 50,000 troops in the area, um, and threaten escalation, with one power backing down, most likely to be China. There's a few reasons for that. If I can find a map, I'll probably put it up on screen right now. There are loads more Indian air bases in the area, in the Himalayas, and they have more capacity. China has 3 main air bases in that area. 2 of them cannot sustain um, larger aircraft which can fight like in normal territory. There will be like lesser, smaller aircraft which can fight in high altitude, but won't be as useful as regular fighters or bombers in this area. So there will be not only less, there's only going to be one proper functional airbase, and that can be completely wiped out by the Indian Air Force, leaving the PLA um, free and open for airstrikes, bombings, yada yada yada. So it will probably be China backing down, but in a different way. Either something like moving its troops eastern, even more eastern, to the border of Myanmar, and pulling India's attention somewhere, like sending troops to Myanmar instead of India, or economic troubles, or something like that. Either take India off the side of the agenda of fighting, or either itself slowly pulling back, creating tensions elsewhere. Um, so yeah. 10. Tensions between Russia and NATO. Tensions between Russia and NATO will peak during the next year, seeing the closest we have been direct conflict in Western Europe in decades. We expect Russia to launch a demonstrational nuclear strike, either in Ukraine or near Ukraine, threatening NATO to stop sending weapons to Kiev. We know this because documents or news coming out from one of Vladimir Putin's advisors saying that they should use a demonstrational nuclear strike as probably a smaller tactical nuclear weapon deployed on a wasteland or somewhere that isn't densely populated, probably the ocean, to scare off NATO. And funnily enough, this is a advisor who Putin listens to and does most of what he says. So either Europe's in for a scary ride, or this is fake news, which there is an equal chance of it being so. The European aid to Ukraine will completely fall, with small packages of aid like ammunition or humanitarian aid from countries like France, Germany, and the UK, countries that aren't closest to the battlefield, as Eastern countries will stop sending aid to Ukraine because of 2 reasons: to either create and preserve their own stockpiles for a war with Russia, which will be on the table, probably, most probable, as an option which could happen, and or to stop angering Russia, because there's out of the geopolitical planners and mappers in the area, as in Europe, some of them think that Russia has no red line. Some of them, you should do this, we should do that. For Ukraine needs to defend itself. We need to attack Russia. We need to attack, send all these weapons to attack, like all the weapons that Western has given to Ukraine, to send them to anywhere in Russia, attack anywhere in Russia. There's going to be a consequence. This is not going to be a cost-free operation, and people, actual war planners, agree. Uh, Russia, just as how Ukraine started hitting Russian cities and civilian cities like Belgorod, uh, some cities in the north as well. Um, then the Russian Air Force intensified attacks on Ukrainian cities, just militarized cities, like like Kharkiv. As Ukraine, let's say Ukraine does get those weapons and allow it to do it, all of these, they hit more and more civilian cities, Russia will do the same. There's a chance that one of these days Russia will actually attack a NATO country. It's happened before, happened twice, killed 10 people, and it's not looking good. Attacking the city the city of Suwalki in the Suwalki Gap, for God's sake. Anywhere, it could be in the Baltics, it could be somewhere in Poland, northern Poland or eastern Poland is probably on the table. And yeah, it's not looking good. So I think it should be a moderate policy. But it looks like countries will stop. And they've learned their lesson. 11. China and Taiwan skirmishes. We predict late this year, from September to October, there will be near misses and mobilizations from China and Taiwan. There will be repeating episodes of the PLAF jets entering Taiwanese airspace and then Taiwan scrambling jets to chase them out of the airspace. But both will never engage. Kind of what we saw around in 2022 when high-ranking person of the U.S. Congress or government, Nancy Pelosi, visited visited Taipei and spoke with Tsai Ing-wen. The moment they left, the PLAF did major attacks, as in like artillery firing, drills, entering Taiwanese airspace multiple times, and people were scared. It was in a time scale for a war. You could see stuff being moved south in the towns of Xiamen and Guangzhou. Those two cities are crucial in case in attack on Taiwan, especially Xiamen, a coastal city with naval and army connections. So as things heat up, we will see like another repeat of 2022 almost. And Japan's Fumio Kishida, the Prime Minister, will move to a greater proactive pacifism foreign policy and will probably hint at mobilization and greater cooperation with Quad countries and major powers and minor powers in the Indo-Pacific region, including countries like the Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand, possibly, and India, Bangladesh, Singapore. So yeah, and the Quad may even commit to shared military joint training exercises and war games in the Indo-Pacific, around the Indo-Pacific, practice to show China who's boss, essentially. And number 12, an economic one. Many countries falling out of recession. As most of Europe's economic powerhouses like the UK, Germany and France slowly recover from either recession or sluggish growth, they will be forced to look elsewhere for valuable trades, which they might have made for Russia before the sanctions, or they may also have to buy from other customers of Russia, like India or China, who import cheap resources from Russia. So they may buy from them. So it doesn't look like they were directly supporting the Russian economy. 13. Iran and Israel. What happens next? Earlier this year, we saw missile exchanges between the state of Israel and Iran. But we expect to see more between Lebanon and, as in Hezbollah, and Israel. Both have been having skirmishes, but intel on the ground is saying the IRGC, or the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, the elite partition of the Iranian military, which have very foreign bases, including the one in Syria, which was attacked by an Israeli drone, which killed one of the generals, which led to the 300 missiles from Iran attack. So anyway, has been preparing Hezbollah for a land war with Israel. The last time Israel and Lebanon had a conventional war was 1948. We expect to see small stage operations between the two, small skirmishes like taking a point and then the other side takes back, quick, fast-paced attacks between the two nations, kind of like what we saw between Napoleon and the Prussians, like quick, like kind of like chasing, like beating them back, and then the other side beats you back, because none of them really want a real war, but both of them really need the strategic point of one, because both of them know that this would take many lives, not much land would be gained, but something between the two taking away each other's resources, they need something like that. So, because in Hezbollah's eyes, if they distract Israel's military up north, the attack on Rafah will kind of slow down. Attack on Gaza as a whole will slow down as more and more brain power and resources are dedicated to the war up north, and Hamas rebuild to full strength with the help of IRGC, and actually do have a two-front war with Israel, which would absolutely destroy Israel. Because you have two militaries, and one military is enough to destroy Israel. If it's Hezbollah or Hamas, doesn't matter, because as in history, we've seen countries like Vietnam. Vietnam is a big example. Less trained, less armed guerrilla fighters who beat off a much more mobilized, technologically advanced army. Like bam, 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 beaten by. We saw it with the British, how they lost to some militia, and then America declared independence. We see this elsewhere, as that's developed, as in with less arms, but can go around quicker. Guerrilla who know the lay of the land, and can replenish forces quite quick because there's usually more and more of them. Beat more advanced, less numerous armies. We saw that in Korea as China beat back America bad, not because the Soviets, because there was more of them. They could move quicker because they didn't have tanks. They didn't have much motorized equipment, so it was just them running, marching, running around, turning circles around America as they try to fumble with the terrain and the tanks. So as this goes on, it looks like you could see that comparison between Hamas or Hezbollah and Israel, Israel being the more advanced, less numerous one. But there is one spin that hasn't brought this factor into yet, is because that's human logic, and Israel is using human logic. Israel's war plan, with airstrikes and soon ground operations as well, is AI. A few months ago, Israel's defense minister revealed that the strikes which happened around in 2022 between the airstrike exchanges between I believe it was Gaza and Palestine and Israel were actually AI led. It was the first AI war because all the strikes and all the ideas, concepts, ammo, everything was coordinated by the AI. Just humans take over, fly the planes, drop the bombs, and do it. And there's been signals of that. Now even the land operations have been taken over by AI. So Israel has two choices. Either they mobilize and they fight Hezbollah, and you see the risk of even more IRGC and Iranian military being deployed to um, Palestine and Lebanon. But as this continues, it's just going to deteriorate, and as if there's a stronger superpower, whether it be Russia in Syria, whether it be China elsewhere, coming from elsewhere, like Saudi Arabia or UAE, or whether it's America coming in from Iraq, Pakistan, bases in Syria, or Israel itself, as in coming from bases inside Israel or Qatar. There needs to be a strong foreign power who can keep everyone in line, as in making alliances, putting this together, or someone who can change the borders, because borders are partly why this is happening. And number 14, I promise we're almost there. We have 15 predictions, and this is the 14th one. The British elections. Our prediction. Earlier this month, His Majesty's Prime Minister Rishi Sunak dissolved the Parliament and called a snap election on the 4th of July. An historic and confusing move. Many early polls show the Labour Party failing to hold a majority, floating around 47 to 49% of the popular vote, and the Tories holding around 24%, the Reform Party holding around 11 to 17%. Many people don't agree with Labour, but are taking them for the ballot this year due to Conservative fatigue. The Labour Party has used the fact that Tories have been power for almost 14 years to their advantage. But weird APs doubt the Labour Party will be able to change the country in the time they're in power. Getting personal, as in the leader of the opposition, Sir Keir Starmer, doesn't have the same oomph as the Conservatives do or any other leader does. He's a boring candidate, to be honest. He's not gonna come in there like Hail Mary is gonna. He's not gonna come in there, do some magic and change everything. It's not gonna fix the economy. The economy is recovering on its way due to the Conservatives being in power, and it's not. The Labour Party cannot change things in fatafat in 2 minutes. They're in power. This is something that needs to be rebuilt. Something that will take time. Something that will be stable. And that's not what people are expecting from Labour, because Labour has made themselves look as the supercharged um, a party that'll come in, fix everything, and go, we fixed everything in like the first month they're in power. It's not gonna have. That's not gonna have. It's not. That's not how it's going to work. If Labour wants to form a majority government in power, they need to probably have a coalition either with the Lib Dem party or the Reform. The Reform is a radical to extreme right-wing party, and say they attacking both Labour, but mainly taking a stab at the Conservatives. Um, so either the Conservative Party can do two things under Rishi Sunak: either take that 11 to 17% the Reform Party is pulling up and put it with their own 24% and come out with 30 to 40% and challenge Labour, give a proper give Labour a run for its money, kind of. And even if Labour does come into power in this general election, I doubt they'll last 2 terms. I feel like this is a like one shot wonder, like one term wonder, as in one shot, like one term in, they're out, and another party's coming in. Whether it's the Conservatives, I'm not sure. Whether it's a Reform, probably not. But yeah, this is going to be a historic election. Not just an election of who will lead the country for the next 5 years, but an election about who, as in what will be the next future for half a century or the next century of Great Britain. Because tensions are around the world, economy is in a critical stage, and healthcare and disease X and the next war could be around the corner. So whoever is in charge, whoever leads the country, and whoever, well, whatever the agenda is, whatever the preparations for whatever happens next, will change the history of the country. Whether this country survives next century, totally different question. And this correlates to this question. Because if this country is going to survive, it needs a strong, stable leader who will prepare the country for the next stage. Prepare the country for disease X, whatever the next disease is, whatever the next illness, whatever, like the next coronavirus is. We need to be prepared for that, because we can't be making the same mistakes again. So, country needs to prepare for the next disease X. The country needs to prepare for the next war, as in, will it be in the Middle East? Will it be a world war? Will it be a war with Russia? Whatever it is, the British armed forces need to be prepared. We need to be able to defend. We need to be able to conscript people. We need to be able to get the British interests out there. We need to be able to protect the country and protect British nationals. We need to be able to build ships. We need to be able to build aircraft. We need to be able to conscript. We need to be able to defend. We need to be able to produce enough ammo to protect the country. We need to be able to export this. We need to be able to be quick around the world, here and there, defending our people. The Falklands, go. Middle East, go. Gibraltar, go. The British Navy needs to be back up to its greater glory. And whoever is in power next will decide that. And 15, our last point. AI. Yep, just AI. As the AI war deepens and it enters the public eye, a race between the world's biggest companies and countries alike, fighting to create the most efficient, smartest AI tools and weapons for their advantage. We see Google, OpenAI, Nokia, Rabbit, Microsoft, and Apple to be the major power of this AI race. I would explain each of them. Google, been working on AI, changing the search history, bro, changing the search engine, making it better, Gemini AI, stuff like that. OpenAI, obviously no ChatGPT. Nokia, this may come surprising as your old phone company that came back to life, now doing stuff with 5G in AI. Nokia made a drone a few years ago, and it used AI to track and find people whenever they're lost, using heat signatures, logic, quick thinking, and it was able to find people. This is going to play lot. This is going a huge technology as smart cities like Sojung in South Korea and the Toyota city increased as more smart cities come out, spawn cities, as technology increases, as technology like AI embedded into our system, like the police department, the fire department. This technology has become important. The ability to use AI to find humans is going to be huge. AI in hardware, mobile hardware like rabbits, like the rabbits R1, it's gonna be a huge deal. And just moving things, vehicles that have AI, drones that have AI, cars, police cars that have AI. Those will become the future, and whichever company is at it first, whether it's Microsoft, whether it's Google with their self-driving car, whether it's Nokia with their drones, or what if a company comes along and makes all these work together, it's going to be a big deal in the next decades, for the next century. Whichever companies, startup, whatever, or companies do this will become the next Apple, or like the next inventor of the next Wright flyer, the Wright brothers, because this is the future. Apple, Siri, phones, AI, VR, AR, and car. So yeah, that's all we predict for the next year. Thank you for watching or listening. This was an IDPair News broadcast of video, and this was an IDPair Studios production in MMXXIV. Thanks for watching.